Tonight, a Muslim transitional home opens for people with special needs. The housing offers improved accessibility and safer spaces. And rising tension between Washington and Beijing.
If China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
U.S. lawmakers denounce China's spy balloon. China calls the downed airship dedicated to research.
$200 or $250 billion are lost in revenue in Canada alone just on stress leave.
Later, a trainer from Coach the Mind will share tips on workplace trends, coworker absenteeism, and stress. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is the Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Samia Sayed. A new transitional housing in Milton, Ontario will provide safe space for Muslim women and children with special needs. The initiative is part of Sakeenha Homes, a national charity that has been catering to the needs of Muslim women and children across Canada since 2018. Since then, the organization identified challenges for women and children with special needs. To cater to people with special needs, the new transitional housing offers a private apartment specifically designed to make accessibility easier and safer. The shelter has opened with assistance from Smile, a nonprofit organization that helps racialized youth with disabilities. Edmonton City Council and Public Services Committee is giving out just over $1 million in funding to stop racism and create safe spaces in the city. The money will be handed out to 5 groups to work on relevant projects. These include the Canadian Mental Health Association, Edmonton Region, and the African Canadian Civic Engagement Council, along with 3 other nonprofit organizations. This community safety fund is separate from another budget dedicated to combating racism. The city councilor says the monies will help provide the groups with the tools necessary to combat racism and discrimination. The chief of a Hadisat First Nation has declared yesterday a state of emergency in the Vancouver Island community. A statement issued by the community says they suffer from the intergenerational effects of residential schools and the oppression of the systems created by the federal and provincial governments. It says there is a, quote, unrelenting impact of drugs and alcohol on their people. Since the pandemic, 6 young people have died in drug crisis. The statement says the First Nation is immediately seeking a response from federal and provincial governments to overcome the sufferings. Hadisat makes up one of the 50 First Nations on Vancouver Island with around 500 members. U.S. lawmakers on Thursday unanimously denounced China's use of a suspected spy balloon that flew over North America last week. The vote allowed lawmakers to agree on a bipartisan stance on Beijing after several balloon-related political skirmishes. The balloon's flyover from Alaska to South Carolina captured massive attention before the U.S. military shot it down Saturday off the East Coast. The House of Representatives passed a resolution condemning the Chinese Communist Party's use of a high-altitude surveillance balloon over the United States territory. Beijing has insisted that the balloon was a civilian airship used for research, mainly meteorological purposes. Increased diplomatic tensions may boost efforts to bar Chinese citizens from buying U.S. property. Now, as we move on from what was the pre-vaccines COVID lockdown era, industries are seeing new challenges and changes. From coworker stress to absenteeism, many employers now have to create extra supports or change their current mode of work to adapt to this effect. Joining us now to tell us more is Brother Mohammed Sheikh, the trainer and owner of Coach the Mind. Welcome to the show, Brother Mohammed. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. Good. Brother Mohammed, help me paint a clearer picture of what's going on. What are some of these challenges that employers are facing in the post-COVID era?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that are going on. One of them is just beginning with folks have been so used to working from home that coming back to the office and, the interaction and, is it safe? Is it not safe? That sort of thing is just people have kind of forgotten, kind of gotten so used to doing things virtually, but then getting back into the environment, that's sort of causing a bit of overwhelm. But outside of that, I think at the same time we really missed just that interaction between each other, that we're always kind of also longing for that. So, employers having to sort of find that balance between those two things.
Mhm. And are there some industries that are more affected by this than others?
As far as I know, because I work with everything from accounting companies to IT companies to services to logistics, and my whole gig, what I basically do is I hold workshops and trainings on emotional resilience and teaching actual techniques that people can use. I'm being called by everyone, so I would say everyone's been hit hard, but in different ways.
Mhm. And if you could give us a snippet of those techniques that you are sharing, what is something that you would recommend?
Well, I think the biggest thing that folks have realized during the pandemic. See, the pandemic was really a pressure cooker, meaning that whatever was inside an individual, it just got pushed out, right? So, depending on how well a person was or how unwell a person was, I'm talking, emotionally, spiritually, also, in their physical health, that just kind of became more. Um, the thing that really, I think, stood out is we want, hold on, let me just sort of get my thoughts. It's just really coming back to the fact that we are human beings, and whoever came up with that phrase, don't take this personally, this is just business, we realize that just how far we actually are from that, right? And a lot of my work and the reasons I get called into corporations is because I teach people how to be productive, how to be profitable, how to drive revenues by actually accessing our own humanity, by building actual connection. So one of, like, just to give you a quick example of this, like, one of my most favorite icebreaker activities to do with these organizations is actually talking about how the job that we have affects us on a personal level. Like, people just show up and they're like, oh, this is a job to make money. But what is that money paying for? Is it paying for my children's education? Is it paying for medical, like, prescriptions? Is it paying for the ability to take care of my parents? Is it paying my mortgage? Without that, like, there's an actual human thing that's driving that. So really connecting us back to our hearts and our humanity and placing that as a priority before just, profits, that has been the biggest game changer. And that's what we really realized.
Mhm.
Uh,
And how urgent is it that employers start enacting some sort of personal connection or training that you're mentioning now to their workplace?
well, I mean, what's the stat? There's something like, I think it was like 200 or 250 billion dollars are lost in revenue in Canada alone just on stress leave. And the thing is, this was a stat, by the way, before COVID, right? So COVID's only just made that more exaggerated. People already needed these resources, and now it's just really made those stats even worse. So yeah, it's absolutely urgent, right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's an assessment that I do pre and post my programs, and you can tell people are drained. They don't have motivation. They don't have. They're physically present, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they're checked out. So
Mhm.
we need to get folks back online.
And how do you get them back online? How do you, I know you said take them through that icebreaker, remind them what they're there for, but then how do you really establish that physical, mental, and emotional connection as we get back to our workplaces?
Yeah, well, there's a few moving parts. I mean, my programs are, sometimes weeks long, but um, if I was to summarize it into a singular concept, as maybe cliched as it may sound, it is really getting people to activate their heart and getting back into renewing emotions that really make us human, stuff like compassion, actual care, actual um, connection with each other, with our customer base, like really understanding the why. Give you a quick little short snippet of this. In our own tradition, in the Islamic tradition, we're reminded of the merchants of the past. They would go to the marketplace and set up shop, and they each had like a daily quota of how much they needed to, keep their family going and keep themselves going, right? When a merchant, a particular merchant would hit their quota, even if it's like the afternoon and there's still the entire rest of the day left, they would on purpose wrap up and close down their shop so that the new customers would then buy from their neighbors because they hadn't hit their quota yet. So that was the spirit. So when we re-engage that actual genuine emotion, it's no longer here. It's actually in the body. It's actually in the heart. Actual compassion, actual connection. That actually has scientific just to put this up, this actually has scientific research behind it, that it regulates our nervous system, it aligns our sympathetic and our parasympathetic branches, it actually facilitates our cortical activity as well, so we're able to make better decisions, be more creative, right? We access optimal functioning by feeling genuine compassion and connection and gratitude.
And
So
say that these trainings or this new initiative doesn't happen in workplaces now. What do you think would be the effect on the employees working there?
well, I mean, we see this all the time. This is every job that most people have had. They feel undervalued, they feel overwhelmed, they feel stressed, they feel burnt out. I mean, a lot of the gigs that I've gotten is because a key executive, like I mean, I can't share because it's all non-disclosures and stuff. But a very big organization that exists globally, their CFO collapsed at the airport because of burnout. And they brought me in to actually do real techniques, um, all this band-aid stuff about, oh, let's just give a trip to like a fair, or let's take everyone to the movies. These are all band-aid solutions. This is just distraction. But this is what we're seeing. People are getting burnt out, people are getting sick, and the root cause of all illnesses ultimately is these emotions that are just suppressed, and they don't have a place to go, so they start making our organs sick.
So the idea is to bring a personal element to our workplace, be a little bit sensitive to the people, and have them open up and get re-engaged in the work that they are doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we need to have the motivation, we need to really believe in the why. But yeah, ultimately, no one shows up to work just to do the work. There's a lot of emotions. We want to contribute, we want to create, we want to have, like I spent a good chunk of my life in corporate Canada, and I wanted to bring my personality, my voice, me into the work that I did. And in the jobs that I was allowed to actually express and connect with people is where I really thrived. In the ones where it was just ultimately they just saw me as just a resource.
Mhm.
Um,
Doesn't
you
end
tend
up
to leave
working
those
out.
jobs. Yeah, you tend to quit.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Brother Mohammed, for coming on the show and sharing a little bit more about our new workplace reality post-COVID.
For sure. Thanks for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's it from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.